Hello and welcome to this short video on educational video production. We've seen in previous videos that production involves the development of an abstract idea into a video or broadcast reality. Now, production doesn't happen in just one go. There are a number of stages that we can go through, each of which will help develop and refine the idea into its finished format. The first of these is called a video pitch. Kellison describes a video pitch in her book. A pitch is just a sales job. You're appealing to someone in a position of power who can approve your project, possibly fund it, and who stands to benefit from its success. For the purposes of educational video, the people who stand to benefit from its success are going to be the learners or the audience. So what does a video pitch look like? And what elements or questions does it involve that will help refine our idea? We've adapted a video pitch from professional television for the purpose of this course, and it looks something like this. Now, as you can see, it's split into a number of different sections. The first of these is a working title. This is just the title that you give to your production so we can identify what it is. Now, your finished video doesn't have to have the same title as the working title, but it's a starting point and a reference that we can use. An example of this is a video that we're going to develop for illustration purposes, and the theme of that video is going to be e-learning. So the working title for this production is going to be Introducing E-Learning to University Education. So already in the working title we get an idea of what the video is going to focus on. We can expand this more in the next section, which is the description. This is the space for you to write a brief outline of what your video production is going to be about. So for our illustration video on e-learning, we can write a description that says, this video will illustrate issues in university education's adoption of e-learning into teaching. It will compare an old-fashioned lecturer and a student. The student will be bored by the lecture. The lecturer will illustrate the point that lecturers do not always think they have to interact. The word lecture is Latin for to read. So from this description, we start to build up the idea of what the video is going to include and how it might look. The next section we're going to develop is the audience. When you're making this video, who is it meant for? For the purposes of our example, we're going to say that the video is intended for an audience of academic staff, probably lecturers. The video will also be applicable to students in order to see if they consider that academics are not using e-learning resources in their teaching effectively, and whether students feel shortchanged as a result. So here we can see there are two audiences identified, one of academic staff and one of students. And already we can begin to see connections with the theoretical framework for educational video that we've developed previously. Now, the next question is about the educational objectives. What do we want to achieve with this video? For the purposes of our illustration, we're going to say that the objectives are to stimulate discussion amongst lecturing staff on their use of e-learning in their teaching, to act as a reflective practice tool for lecturers to consider how they teach, and to stimulate discussion among students in respect of their views on e-learning at university. By specifying the aims this way, when we come to evaluate the video at the end, we can begin to see how effective it is. If we have got academic staff to reflect on their practice, and if we have stimulated debate with students, then we can see that the video has met its objectives. So it's a good idea to state these objectives explicitly for evaluation purposes and for production purposes. The next stage that we want to look at in our video pitch is motivation. Why do you want to make this video? What's the driver or the inspiration that makes you want to go away and create this piece of work? Well, for the purposes of our illustration, we're going to say that the motivation is, it's my view that lecturers ignore the possibilities and opportunities offered by e-learning resources to enhance student motivation and learning. I want to therefore create a short, emotive video to get lecturers to think about this. Now, whether that viewpoint is accurate is debatable, but it's the motivation, it's something that the producers found that's inspired them to want to create a resource to stimulate debate on this. The next element of our video pitch is the educational design, and this is a brief description that relates to the theoretical framework that we've previously developed. For the purposes of our illustration, we're going to say that this will be an open-ended video in order to stimulate discussion. I plan to use this video as a video supplement preceded by a brief introduction at a staff development event and followed by discussion. Imagery in the video will relate to the early 1900s in order to show the university as old-fashioned in its approach. The style will therefore be that of an old-fashioned movie, Chaplin-esque in image, an approach which will hopefully provoke post-showing discussion. Now, again, whether the university is old-fashioned in its approach is questionable, but we can see connections with the theoretical framework with this idea, and we can already see a development of the imagery that we're trying to use to provoke discussion. This leads us to think about what issues there may be involved in producing this work. What problems might this kind of production face? For the purposes of our illustration, we can see a number. First of all, access to an empty lecture theatre for recording has to be planned, which should be okay. Finding someone suitable to play the roles of a lecturer and a student may be difficult, but if no one's willing to do this, this is the place where you as producer may have to step in and play those roles yourself. To make the video look authentic, you have to study some of the filming techniques of the early 1900s. Appropriate music has to be sourced, and a copyright license has to be agreed. And finally, there's a question of balance. The video must be provocative but not insulting if the right kind of discussion is going to follow the showing of the video. And that requires careful attention during recording and during the editing stages of production. Now, the video picture is important because this is where others get their first impression of the idea of the video that you want to produce. So think carefully about the detail you're providing and explain any points or details that you think are necessary when completing the pitch form. The pitch is a useful tool and one of the stages in video production, and if it's successful, it leads on to the next stage, which is called the treatment. And that's something we're going to look at in more detail in the next video in this series.